Hi, and welcome to the Diablo Podcast, your home
He
for
still has
Diablo
to do the motion.
diehards. I do. Uh, your home for Diablo diehards, tryhards, casual, and hardcore. Like, I am your host, Xanth, and today I'm joined by my normal crew, back together again, and it feels so good. Nineball
Oh, hi.
and Nerdwords.
Hello.
And the goal for today is we'll hit the ground running. We'll talk a little bit about post-release, how we've been enjoying the expansion. Um, we got a patch coming. We don't need to go into patch notes. That's what the internet is for. Our goal from today is to talk about Vessel of Hatred's story. So this is the warning at the front end. If you're waiting for us to just come together for an hour and chat Diablo and our experience and how much we love the Spiritborn and it's the best design class, yeah, we're going to do that. But we're going to do that very quickly because then we're going to go into the story. So if you haven't finished the story, this might be the episode to sit out. And that seems weird to say. I would love to have you guys all along for the journey. But if you want to save yourself, spoilers, we will get into it. But that'll be in a little bit. I will give you a warning. I'll let you know, like, now's the time to turn it off. Go and write a review on Apple Podcasts that doesn't talk about horrible audio quality and, other disparaging things. It's fine. I don't that often. Uh, it's cool. It's cool. But you can come back. Come back next time, and we'll just be chatting D with the boys. Just chatting D with the boys like normal. So, gentlemen, I talked at length about my experience with Vessel of Hatred because I did have the fortunate capability to play a little bit early, right? Nineball, you were too preoccupied with life to take advantage of that window. And Nerdwords, you weren't in that window. So you've had a week. We've had, it is the 16th for you, Leviathan. You've had some time to get into Vessel of Hatred. How has your experience been? What have you been doing so far?
Nine, you want to go first, or
Sure. So I completed the campaign. That is my shining contribution to this podcast.
And since that's where most of our conversation is going to be, it is enough.
yeah, I also completed the campaign, and spent quite some time with the campaign. I really took my time through it, and then did all the little side quests and all the things I could. I think there's a bug on one of my side quests right now because I'm not completion-ish, but I did the quest, so I'm a little frustrated by that. But that'll get fixed. But really, like, drank it in, and then as soon as I got through all of that, just went like giga grind mode. I had time off from work, and I spent all of my vacation playing that. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it quite a bit.
All right, I'm gonna pick your brains just a little bit, and I'm gonna answer the question for Nineball because I already know it. But you know what? Maybe he's gonna surprise me. Nineball, what class did you play through the campaign on?
I played as a necromancer.
Yeah,
Oh my gasp.
Yeah,
Gasp.
I know.
Yeah.
And you haven't touched the Spiritborn yet.
No, I
Okay.
think what was it? Knight had like messaged me on like Twitter or like one of my posts on Twitter or something like that, and was going through and was being like, "So are you gonna try Spiritborn as an alt?" And it's just like, I have not played anything that is not a necromancer. My character's select screen is just currently 9 different necromancers.
That's fair. I mean, I'm not going to fault you for it. So then, Nerdwords, we got to talk on our last podcast. You obviously started with a sorcerer first, I assume. How
Yes.
was that?
Yep.
How was that playthrough? Story aside, how was the playthrough?
Great. I mean, sorcerer feels like home, like usual.
And then, how much do you hate sorcerer after playing a far superior class like the Spiritborn?
None, because I haven't played the Spiritborn yet at all.
Huh?
I've still
hold on 1 second. I want to point out, pre-show, I was like, oh, I saw on Discord, it tells me how many hours you've been playing, and it was 56. You haven't even touched it yet?
Nope. In fact, I'm
Wow.
gonna wait because I want to do a campaign playthrough with the Spiritborn to see if there's any cool little, like, I'm sure there's little dialogue moments and things that happen like exclusively for the Spiritborn, which I'm excited about. But I have not played it. Now my buddy is. I've got a buddy in my group that I'm playing with that is playing it, and it is simultaneously created and ruined fun for everyone else. But it is it looks great. It looks super cool. I'm definitely going to play one. I'm not tired of the Sork yet, and I'm not to a point where I feel like I'm done with the Sork yet. So I'm still playing the Sork.
I'm
Respect.
amazed by that. I did in the test, I did all Spiritborn, and then with the launch, I went right to Spiritborn again because there was still like things I wanted to play with. Um,
Sure.
and then I leveled a hardcore druid, got to like level 45, and I was like, this doesn't feel as good now. I am going to go and play Spiritborn. So I made a hardcore Spiritborn, and it's cruising, and I love it. I think there's a problem down the
Yeah,
road.
centipedes are just superior to fleas. I mean,
This is
Yeah,
true.
that's really
it's
This is
true.
true.
um,
Um, I think, and maybe it's not felt as much in other classes, but I think by comparison, like a druid and a Spiritborn, the druid feels very clunky. Um, to how clean everything is with a Spiritborn, and how much choice and versatility you have. And obviously, there's meta on both sides, but I don't feel as pigeonholed on a Spiritborn as I do with a Druid, where it's like I have to be in this form to make it effective. And um, I'm looking forward to the eventual class reworks that we are going to get. And also, um, it's weird to be on the end of the spectrum where it is like to play the most powerful thing. Um, 'Cause everything that Spiritborn touches is really great right now.
And
It's
you're
like,
just so used to playing trash.
yeah.
yeah,
That,
it's like
yeah,
I've been
yeah,
in
Yeah.
an abusive relationship for so
yeah,
long that I don't know what it feels like to be loved this way.
yeah. It's fair.
It
It's fair.
it feels
It's a hard
wrong.
life.
I
Let's
mean,
also let-
this. I was just gonna say this isn't entirely new because it is something that we have seen before. Obviously the Necromancer in Diablo 3, when it came out, it was just a better designed class. I mean, the Crusader was a step above, the original starting lineup, but then the Necromancer was just like head and shoulders above everybody else when it first launched. It wasn't until they went back and started doing reworks and such, because it was, they had the accumulated knowledge of everything that they had done, with the game, as well as everything that they had done post launch, in order to go through and put the finer tweaks, on it. Not to mention just understanding the code, the databases, and all other types of stuff when designing like how the skill systems interact and such. That there's a lot of things that go into that you have so much more experience, not just with designing the classes, but how think of all the changes that have undergone for itemization, like overpower, vulnerability, the Paragon reworks, and then also you're building the class alongside like the rune system and all those other types of stuff. That it just is like it's the whole thing is just made that it's not intentionally a better experience. It's just they're better at making classes when they made this one because of everything that had come before.
no, I think that's absolutely right. And Leviathan even kind of alluded to that when he was on, talking about the creation with, knowing like tempering, like you're spot on, Nightball, like tempering didn't exist when they were making a druid, when they were making a sorcerer. So it gets that advantage. Also, I mean, I want to point out Leviathan is helping make this class. It might be his fault. Like I don't. He's getting a lot of credit, and I think that's duly earned that he and his team have knocked this class out of the park. Also,
Sure.
they've made some of us feel bad about the other classes we liked. And I think they also need blame. Like they should get
Sure.
blame for
Equal. It's
making
got to
us
be
feel
equal.
bad. Right.
Tip
Yeah,
the scales a little bit.
you did something good, but also, you know, I feel kind of crummy when I play a druid. So
Yeah.
it'll balance out.
I saw an image on Reddit of a necromancer crit overpowering with sever for like 800 billion. I'm good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I feel pretty
No.
good with the Sork's at too, to be honest. So
I'm level like 56 right now, but I'm good.
Okay. So it's just druids and barbarians apparently. I think I wished for the demise of the barbarian just a little too much.
yeah, it's your
And
fault. See, now
it
same thing. Tip the scales. That one's your fault. Blame
I'll
Xanth.
take it.
Hashtag blame
Uh,
Xanth.
sorry, but not sorry. It's
Sorry, not
okay.
sorry.
Um, no, I was watching Macrobio Boy a little bit tonight, and he's doing the Sever build, and he was doing about like he said 4 billion per Sever. So uh, yeah, good on him. Good on him for coming up with that and playing it out and seeing how it all kind of works. So all right, classes are fun, things are cool. It's fun to play around in all the new activities. Really, ultimately, the game is in a very good spot. I did have the pleasure of being on Kind of Funny last week, 2 weeks ago, um, to give a score, and I scored Diablo Vessel of Hatred a 9 out of 10. I
I like
think it
the
is.
number.
Yeah, I know you would. Um, I think it is amazing. I think there's some room for growth. One of the criticisms I brought up, but we weren't allowed to talk about, which makes sense. You don't do story spoilers before it comes out, was the story. And listener, this is your segue. This is me transitioning. We're going to move into story spoilers. I'm sorry. One of the things I said was I thought that the story didn't live up to my expectations, and I rated it around like, a 7 out of 10, which we talked a little pre-show. Maybe that would go a little bit lower. Before we go into why, and I think you guys all have your own mental score, is Vessel of Hatred hurt by expectations built prior to its launching of where you thought the story would go? Could any story truly live up to what you might have wanted?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh yeah, totally. I
Yeah.
mean, like
Obviously,
I pen it out. We're good.
your expectations are always going to be more than whatever it is that you get in the majority of things. But the expectation of fighting Mephisto was I don't think that expectation was like set too high or anything like that, right? um and I guess spoilers, you technically you do fight Mephisto, is Wolf, but you don't fight Mephisto. So
Okay, so how do we parse this out? Um, why don't let's start with the good of the story. What did you personally enjoy as you were going through this journey? I'll start. I like that they fought against the trope of what happened to Leah in Diablo 3. I think a lot of people were expecting that Nerel was going to just die.
yeah.
I like that they didn't just do that, because I think they were damned if they do and damned if they don't on this. If she dies, then it is just, hey, they're just redoing what they did with Leah. It was a pointless character that we had to follow for all of a game who ends up dead. Why did they even include her? And I think it allows for some more character growth in a future expansion. I liked that. But when I was talking to you, in other words, I said I think there's going to be some points of contention in the story. This was one that I was definitely thinking will be contentious, because I think there were a lot of people who don't like Nerel, wanted to see her gone, and there's a certain contingent on the internet that isn't just a fan of female characters in general. So to have her live, I liked that decision. Things that you guys enjoyed.
I'd have to
Dying.
say that I'd have to say that I agree with that. It was definitely a change. Things have usually not ever ended out well for people that have possessed soul stones. So seeing her, survive the experience, and also just I thought that was probably one of the better story points throughout it of the whole, which is a very different in a Diablo game of like you're not alone, we can do this together, and actually having characters talk about the issues afflicting them as opposed to like keeping everything bundled inside until the demons are going through and breaching out, even though that kind of did happen. But it's kind of like an overused like movie trope. It's like there's something wrong. I'm seeing visions and like the demon is on the appearing in the shadows, but I'm just gonna keep that to myself type thing. But them actually like trying to work together, and Nayrel conquering her hatred, at multiple times, talking about how you're responsible for the death of my mother. No, wait, no, it was Lilith. Lilith killed my mother. It was good seeing to not fall on some easy tropes, to not have Nayrel die, just because that it would be fitting for a Diablo game, but it is something that is different. It's hopeful. Outside of like that particular like story point, I thought that the inclusion, it's funny because I'm going to talk about the thing that I liked, and then I'm going to bring this up again with things that I did not like. I did like kind of like the conflict happening within the Church of Light, with the
That was
burned
awesome.
knight. Yeah, that was really cool.
Super cool.
Yeah. Going through and seeing like how just like politics work. Inarius is gone, and so obviously there's a power vacuum, and how that affects like the church and that organization, and people going through and trying to take control of it because they see an opportunity. And also just whenever a character has like a really cool weapon or like really cool armor, like his face mask and such, and when you beat them in the story you get the transmogs for it, should continue in
Very
every
cool.
other
Yep.
game or expansion that ever comes out. Please, that was great. Perfect. I loved it. But besides that, I liked his characterization. I liked kind of like the little political intrigue that created with the church. I wish that it was a bit more expansive, because it kind of only really touched on briefly at the beginning and around like halfway through, and then kind of like then I guess a little bit at the end, and the story was mute. But I wish that had like integrated itself a little bit more. Um, yeah. I mean, outside of story elements, like that, the final when you're going into Akarat's tomb, and it kind of like parts the water and all of that, very obviously like biblical, but that was just beautiful. Like that whole sequence of going and walking through, like the maze with the water on every side, it was just phenomenal. Like the sound design team, the environmental team, the art team, all did amazing work for everything, throughout the story and that zone in particular.
Yeah, there's a lot that I liked about the campaign. There's a lot that I liked about it. And I agree with you guys about Nayrel it being different and not killing her. Though I think they kind of set themselves up for failure by setting her up to be what she was at the end of the expansion anyways, because they basically painted themselves into a corner. Either they kill her and they're obviously doing the same thing they always do, or they don't kill her and it feels like the obvious answer to make it different. Because I don't feel like it was different at all. I think it was the same but imprinted onto Eru instead. Because obviously with how that plays out with him, it felt like they just like pivoted last minute, like no, not Nayrel, write this instead. Now I thought it was delivered very well, and I thought the cinematic for it was super good. But it was like the whole time, especially if you played Diablo as much as most of us have, you're waiting for who's going to betray me this time, right? There's always a betrayal. There's always some plot twisty thing, and it's like I don't think it's necessary. I think they could have been a little more deliberate with it. I think that There was a lot good about the expansion. And a lot good about the story. Again, I agree with you about the Cathedral of Light, like turmoil in the church. I thought that was super good. I will get to the stuff I didn't like in a second, I guess. So I liked that a lot. I thought the pacing was good. I thought, I played the campaign by going to the new town and doing all the side quests before doing the main quests. So I felt like I got a lot more out of the story because you're kind of getting more of the region story and like little NPCs in town before you go do the quests. And I don't know how many people experienced it that way. I kind of did it like World of Warcraft, where you go to a town and you do all the little side quest nodes before you continue the main quest and you move to the next one. And I thought it played very well in that way, and really felt lived in and fleshed out. And Nahantu is beautiful; like it's so cool.
Oh, yeah.
And the different zones are so distinct. And I'm gonna say this like 10 times. Holy shit, the soundtrack! Like the soundtrack for Vessel is one of the best ones they put out in a long time. It's incredible. It is just banger after banger. Really, really good. It's a really good and cool callbacks to like older Diablo music that they like redid with like different instrumentations and like effects that were really cool. Like the original D2 like opening theme is in the soundtrack, but it's like really far away, like almost like you're hearing it from outside of a cave. It's super neat. And then it like swells into this whole big thing. I thought the music was incredible. It was so good. And I really enjoyed most of the story points. Most of the things I didn't like about it weren't enough to like make me dislike the campaign. It just felt like very obvious choices that made other choices seem shoehorned in a bit, but we'll get to that when I get to the stuff I don't like. But I thought the Nahantu was beautiful, the music was beautiful, and the basic elements of a story were there. I think the biggest miss for me was it felt like, not because of what we did or did not do at the end, it felt like we were missing one fight. Like when I finished the fight with Wolfisto, I felt like, okay, it's time for that next thing. And I was like, oh shit, it's over? That was it? And that felt weird. And not bad, because that fight was super cool. It was a really neat fight.
That was one of those ones where it's like that was a super amazing fight. I'm sad that it's like one of those ones that will probably, the only way to do it again is to replay the campaign.
Yes.
You're never going to see that as a boss fight. Like
when the idea of like Akarat and Wolfisto like going at it, and you're like it's so cool.
What is it? The very beginning of the fight where it's actually going through and like the arena is closing in on you.
Yes.
If you it's
ugh.
not just that, but if you stop and you look, the wolf is in the background vomiting the blood into the arena that's filling up around you. If you're only focusing on the fight, like you could miss that detail.
There's so many details around it.
Yeah, and it's just like the jaws are like fully unhinged. You're just sitting there, just vomiting blood in order to like go through. It is so grimdark. I love it. That is what I want from a Diablo game, is the boss to be vomiting blood and drowning me in the middle of it. So
and it's not that fight's fault that the other fight didn't exist, right? That fight was still a really cool fight in its own. I just don't feel like it was the climax fight. It was but it felt like there was another one to come. Even in the way that it was paced in the story, it felt like there was another one. But I think the biggest win of the entire expansion, for me, especially in the campaign, was them imprinting you into the in-game cinematics. Like having your character in your transmog in those moments was so freaking cool. It felt like, I mean, obviously there's other games that have done it, but it just felt so good here, and it looked good. But yeah,
and
I
also just
like
a detail of that one that it turns off your helmet.
So you can see your face.
So that way
no
you can
what.
always see your character. So you don't have to worry about, I've got to hide my helmet option so that way I can actually see my face during the cutscenes.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, and it made you feel more a part of the story than I think. They might have fallen short in other moments or in other campaigns for Diablo games or ARPGs. So I thought that was really cool. There was a lot of good about the expansion, but high level notes is that's where I'd go with it.
I will agree with you definitely on that. Seeing the character built into the cutscenes. I'd share this on Twitter, but you can make a male Spiritborn that looks just like this, and seeing it's basically like it's like I'm in the game. Really,
my biggest question is how do the nipples match up?
Yeah,
we've already talked about that. That is an exclusive to Kind of Funny. I don't take my shirt off on this podcast, but I could for money. I'm gonna, maybe edit that out, Rush.
Now you can't.
Yet. But I will wholeheartedly agree on the the ending of this campaign very much did feel unresolved. I remember getting to that end cutscene, which was absolutely phenomenal. Like that
Yeah.
it inspires the great feeling of dread. Seeing him, create the sword and rise from that ichor, and as those statues are melting and it looks like they're weeping, amazing. But that is not what it didn't feel like an ending, because then I immediately go back to Kurust and I need to do a bunch of quests, which feels still like a campaign. It feels like, oh, I'm going to do all this and then I'm going to go find him, right? I'm going to go find
Yeah.
him. It's like, no, he's there. He's somewhere, but like, we're good. Do you want to go clear out a big Khazra? You want to go fight that guy? Because we're kind of concerned about
Which,
that right
by the
now.
way, the Dark Citadel lore is also so sick. Oh my god. Anyway, yeah. That's anyway. We'll get to that too. But yeah, so good.
But yeah, it doesn't feel like there's an ending, or even if it was, he has risen, and we know what he is doing that we can't go find him, but just like, oh, he's up. See you in a year. Doesn't feel as good compared to Reaper of Souls, where there was an ending, even with the original intention of having another expansion, which was scrapped well before it. But there could have been. This one, like, we know there'll be another one, and I think the ending of this feels like the story made a lateral move. Our characters are still pursuing the same objective, which is to eventually fight Mephisto. He found a new vessel, and like
Which is
I think,
its own discussion in and of itself.
right. So I think that's a good transition to the things that are, I guess, leave a bad taste in your mouth. As as I said, we're going to talk about story. What were the things where you're just like, this is where I was the most upset. This is the thing that, as I look back after a week or after a day or 2 days, that still rubbed me the wrong way.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Sure.
So, I mean accurate. I mean, like, so obviously, if you're familiar with Diablo lore, Akarat is the in-universe Jesus, like, quite literally. But I didn't expect them to take such a literal interpretation down to that, like, just the whole characterization and
imagery, everything.
The imagery of, and it's like, oh, okay. Here's my homework. Please do not steal. Type thing. It's like, okay, you could have changed a little bit. Because it honestly just feels like they changed the name, and that was about it. So I feel as if that was just like, it felt too on the nose, and it was just pulling me out. It was like, especially at the end, and like, seeing the human form of Akarat, and it was just like, really? Like, I'm pretty sure that my grandmother had a picture of this guy like up on the mantle. So I definitely would have liked to have seen some creative interpretation. I don't know. It was like it was just like, that was just like too on the nose. They copied it a little bit too much. And of course, not fighting Mephisto. This feels like this should have been like the season 5 storyline. Like that you go back in season 5, and this was the story that we got for the seasonal campaign. So that way it sets us up to actually like fight Mephisto, because this feels like the prologue. which, when we were talking like before the show, if it hadn't ended the way that it was, probably, yeah, sure, I would have given the story like a 7 or an 8. It wasn't as good as like the core game, but it's an expansion, it's shorter, more limited resources, so you're not going to be able to put as much into the campaign, yada yada. But just the way that it was delivered, it honestly, this is like the mid-season break or something along those lines, with the giant to be continued, where, like you had mentioned, Xanth, the story just moved laterally. We are nowhere. We haven't progressed anywhere further in the story. It's just like we're hunting Mephisto, because, and of course um and as I mentioned earlier, with the whole the Burn Knight, uh, you know, he's just kind of like introduced as a cutscene where he almost kills you, and then we kill him, and then that's it.
Yep.
Like I said, I wish that it had been bigger, more impactful, that he had survived to continue that, the troubles of the church a little bit further, like down the line, because now it's just like we introduced a problem, and then we introduced a new problem into the story, and then we solved it. And so that the original problem from the previous story is still the only problem. And it felt like a Burn Notice episode, where, it's like it like every episode starts with the ongoing plot, some side plot gets introduced and then resolved, and then the end of the episode is again the ongoing plot, and
Yeah.
that's kind of like where we got left with this one. And yeah, I just would have liked to have seen it. There was also things that I felt maybe I got baited a little bit, because they kept talking about how, like, all like the Burn Knight and his followers, they suffered from vanity more than anything else, and then just kind of like, oh, who is it? Like, Pravo was the only person that survived, but now like somebody else survived, and it's like, is he potentially like corrupted? Is this like some other demon that's like going through and like wearing a human skin that's trying to cause trying to cause problems? Is it possibly like Anarius, like, reincarnated, that is like, trying to retake control of the church, but now he's not an angel anymore because like his wings got ripped out, and so he's just mortal, type thing. It's like there's a whole bunch of like possibilities, little dialogue things that they added in there to kind of like hint at it, and it's like, nah, he's
just a
just a
dude.
guy, just a
I
dude, and
the
now he's dead.
the entire time for Eurover, I thought he was going to be revealed to be Lucian. We have the
Mm.
crown of Lucian. We know
Mhm.
it's in game, so like there's this thought, and obviously I don't know how that character does return.
He's
But
a
I was
demon.
like,
They respawn. He's in the gulag cooking. It's fine.
Yeah.
but I mean, I was expecting that to be him
Yeah.
because that would give him a purpose. I've taken on this role to cause chaos, and in the midst of it, do some demon stuff. But when it was just a dude, like it definitely does take away, because like that, what was the point? Like, your point was to shuttle our character to Nahatu, right? To injure us and make our character meet Eru, right? Like that was your purpose. And then come in when it's convenient and capture Eru, right? Like it it just doesn't, it feels unresolved. Like
Yeah.
that whole, like, you introduce them, I'm in. I believe that there would be some strife with the church after what has transpired, but to have it be resolved so quickly, it felt like it
Mhm.
didn't need to. Why was that the thing that you were content resolving, as opposed to like leaving it
Yeah.
more open? Uh, which I think we'll get to at the end. At the end, I think let's get to story speculation in terms of like where the story will go with what we are left with. I think there is an ending there, because once those knights are cleared out, like, Fava gets control, and what does that lead to? We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll talk about that. Yeah, but that definitely did feel uh, meh. Like, it was a cool cutscene, but we didn't need to kill him. I wasn't
Yeah.
clamoring
I mean,
for it.
I have quite a lot here, so I'll kind of like try to rapid fire them because they're quick hits. Um, I didn't like that I had to be friends with Prava at all. Like, why am I allowing this bitch in my house? Fuck no. Like, with the power that I have, how the fuck does she walk into my house? Like, how is that a thing that happened? Let alone the fact that, like, Yurvar being a regular dude, he didn't do that much damage to me. I've played Diablo 4. I know how much damage I can take. One sword swipe from one of them dudes is easily a stun, maybe a quarter of my health. It ain't a falling off a bridge almost dying. I get gameplay trumps lore. Right?
Yeah,
like I get that, but come on. Like,
I want to interject there really quick, because it is like one of those ones where because this is the first time that you don't actually have to play through the rest of the campaign, like because it's created to be like incremental, that you just start at level 1. And so, like, how would that actually feel playing through the entire campaign, getting to like level 50 plus, and then getting to that scene and him just like stabbing you? Is like, I just beat fucking Lilith. Like, fuck off,
like,
dude.
Literally
like,
just took down Lilith, and this guy just stabs me, and I fall. Right. Yep. I mean, and that's how I look at it too. When I was playing through it, like, I mean, I've started a new character, obviously.
Yeah.
But in my head canon is, I mean, all my characters are named the same thing because I just feel like this is one continuous journey with the same character as I play through all the seasons. And so for me, like, it was like my character, I played the campaign right before it came out just to refresh myself on kind of where we were. So it felt really disjointing to go from that.
Very much so.
To like, dude stabs you, and I'm cool with that. Like, dude, bro, I've got flame shield. What are we talking about here? Like, I'm a literal sorcerer. But I also get it, right? They needed a storytelling device to knock us on our ass so we could get back up again. Like, I get the whole trope. I just didn't love that. I thought Yurvar was very cool. And I wish he hadn't died. I just flat out wish he hadn't died. I wish he was more menacing than he was. I wish we had taken out one of his lieutenants and he was a problem in a future season. I thought that would have been very cool. He was too cool to die, and I feel like he died before he was able to deliver on what his purpose was. He pushed us along in the story, but at the end they try to like make him human. Like, this is what I went through in hell. Like, as he's dying, he's like trying to kind of like plead with you to like, don't you see my side of it? And it's like, yeah, dude, I kind of do, but you suck, right? Like, and if we'd gotten more of that conversation like throughout the campaign, or additional moments or fights where we had to interact with him, it would have been different. But we literally, like you said, saw him, badass, stabs us. Okay, that's kind of questionable, but you know, arguably badass. And then we just wiped the floor with him. And that's it. So he didn't actually achieve anything. It was just a lesson in humans suck, which is the constant lesson of Diablo. So I thought it was on theme in that regard, but it just felt like it fell a little short. I really, really, really feel like there were some moments in the story that could have been done just slightly differently that would have landed so much better than they did. But again, overall, I did enjoy the story. I think my biggest and most annoying thing is that very similar to Diablo 3, and my biggest complaint with Diablo 3's story, I didn't feel like the main character. Neyrelle was the main character, and I was helping Neyrelle. I thought it was really ironic that we got mercenaries in this expansion because I felt like her mercenary. This is the first Diablo game where we actually caught up with the person, right? Like, whatever it was we're chasing, we got there before they died, right? And it just felt like all the puzzles, she solved them. I didn't have any interaction or contribution to any sort of like maze or puzzle, the thing behind the water, like all that stuff, right? I thought the voice actress was great, but who the fuck is she? She's just some random chick, right? Which is fine. But like, if I'm the main character, shouldn't she be helping me? It just felt kind of a little opposite. Or if she's more badass, I'm sure it's going to come to light, because obviously she's now like a one-handed Herodrum who carried the damn Stone of Astaroth with Mephisto in it, you know, across the sea, which is badass, but like, and maybe that's the lesson, is that everyone has the ability to be that badass in this world if you put in enough work and grit. But for me, it just feels like the story's happening to her and I'm experiencing it through her. Same way with Leah in Diablo 3. It felt like it was happening to Leah and I was along for the ride, but it wasn't me driving that story. And for the first time in a long time, we catch up, we're there, and we're able to drive the story, and then Neyrelle's driving the story. So it just felt really strange in that regard. Again, not bad, just not my preferred method for storytelling, I guess. I thought the Eru plot twist was so stupid. I was literally annoyed when it happened, because like I knew it was going to happen and it had to either be Neyrelle or him, and like you said, Neyrelle felt super obvious. So the whole time I'm going, okay, so it's Eru. It's going to be Eru that does it, right?
It's funny that like you mentioned, like Eru was going through and was coming, And there was a thing that they had been setting up, like the whole story. And when it was revealed to be him, it's like, oh, it's obviously, it's because it's Nahantu. Help was asked, so help was given, and Mephisto asked him for help. That's what they're gonna do, right? And then they're like, no, I just don't like you.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
oh.
you ruined my life.
Oh.
Like, you're really just that petty?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's
I mean,
it.
I get
like,
it. Like, like, I thought, now imagine real quick, and obviously this is a hypothetical world where this doesn't happen. I think if Narel kills Eru and Maka turns on you, I think that's a much more compelling story plot, like, than what we got. And it would make me care more because I knew more about Eru and cared about him. When Maka died, I didn't care as much because we don't get much time with her. Yeah. But the idea that this guy's helping us, I really liked Eru. I thought he was cool. Of course, I was always waiting for that other shoe to drop. But I think that moment could have been better in the other direction, honestly. Obviously, I think the Mephisto fight, there was one fight missing. Not that we needed to kill Mephisto, but we needed to fight real Mephisto, right? Like, we needed to fight full form. I mean, you're selling Funko Pops of Mephisto at the same time that this game launches. I assumed I was going to see full Mephisto.
Yeah.
We saw him in the trailer. Didn't see him in the campaign.
I legitimately thought at the end when the bubbling muck went and took over Akarat's corpse and like sunk down into it,
and we might then
when it started going through and coming back up, there was going to be Mephisto that rised out of the muck, and it was just like, nope, it's just Jesus.
It's
again.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, it's just Jesus.
Yeah.
That's how I felt about it too. But that said, I am excited that Mephisto's not one and done. Like, don't get me wrong. I think that the upside to that ending is that it isn't an ending and that he is still out there, and that's cool because I like Mephisto. He's a very interesting character, and especially in the Diablo lore. I mean, he's really the progenitor of almost everything bad that happens. So it's really great to see that that's still holding true and that he's going to be out there. And I love what it's setting up, which we'll get into for speculation stuff later. I think one of my biggest, and this might be something that I just missed over the years and never knew it, but when I saw Akarat as a lion, it took me out of it right away. Like, when the spirit guardian of Akarat was this giant lion, I literally just went Chronicles of Narnia and just like, and I love Chronicles of Narnia. Don't get me wrong. Love that series. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was one of my favorite books ever. Changed my literary life as a little kid. That said, Aslan's been done, and that's a second Christian euphemism. Like,
I was about to say, well, who Aslan is, right?
Yeah, 100%. No, I get it. Like,
he's Jesus Christ. Yeah.
No, I know, right? And then when we finally saw the corpse of him, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So they're not saying he's a lion, it's just his spirit, and that's okay, that's interesting. I'm not sure why this is happening, but that's fine. Cool. And it just, for some reason, that really stuck with me, and I was not a big fan of that either. But again, I thought the cinematics, the full cinematics we got at the beginning and at the end were great. I thought the in-game cinematics were really good. But overall story, I kind of similarly agree. Like, it left a little to be desired, and I think with some minor changes, it could have been way, way, way better. It felt like, to me, like watching a movie at a movie theater and going, I want to see the director's cut of this movie. Because I bet you the director's cut is way better. And there's probably 30 minutes that's missing that makes the campaign feel 10 times better. Right? I guarantee you there's story elements or things that we did not get in the final cut of the game that would have made those moments feel better, because it felt like they were going somewhere and then it just got shoehorned at the last minute to finish the experience and get the game out. That said, I still think it was a great experience and definitely worth the $40 price point for the story alone. But I also did every little thing, so I spent, like a 2 full days playing the campaign and enjoyed it. Just like Diablo 3. There's things I love about it. There's things I did not love about it so much. And agreed with you, Nine. The Jesus symbolism is something. Especially for a game series that had moved away from real world symbolism. They had that in Diablo 1 and 2 a little bit. And then in Diablo 3 and 4, they kind of distanced themselves and kind of used like their own iconography and things. And now it feels like they're kind of like taking shots at that again. In this setting, so it's still their own thing, but it's very obviously Jesus, like a symbol, like he rose from the dead, right? He was alive, like it just feels odd. That's all.
He's just South American Mormon,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
came back to visit the Native Americans in South America, type thing. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, this is what we're doing, kind of out of place. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I think though, as a caveat though, I think the best part of the expansion, the entire expansion, the Festering Dark Stronghold is one of the coolest strongholds they've ever done, and a very cool dungeon experience with cool necromancer lore. If you haven't done that yet, Nine, have you done that yet?
No, I have not.
Okay,
I have.
do
I
it.
have
We need to
quest.
talk.
Yeah,
So good.
I haven't gotten around to it yet.
Very good. There's a side quest that references the Ennead Mage clan, which was very awesome to see. Let alone the lore they dive into in the Dark Citadel with the Viserai and the Ennead clan and all that stuff, and kind of the origins of this Dark Citadel is, as a sorcerer for 20-something years, amazing. Very, very cool.
It's one of my biggest complaints about the original story in Diablo 4 was that the complete and total lack of like any mentioning or throwbacks to Diablo 3 besides like Chaldeum, and Altarnus and such, but not a lot of actual conversation about anything that had taken place there. Yeah. And then I'm just like walking through, is like, does that guy have a skeleton mage? Walk up to like go through and get his little side quest. He starts talking about Malthael and the Reapers and stuff. It's like, oh my fucking god! Like it actually happened. It wasn't a fever dream.
Yeah,
like
oh yeah,
nice
no,
they're actually going through and throwing in some of that. Which also forgot to mention one of my other kind of like icks with the story is too many member berries that were there. There's paying respects, and then there's obvious we're just throwing this in as a member berry, type thing. Yeah, like Ormus is old. Ormus should be dead. Like.
Well, he kind of is a little bit though. So there is that, but. Yeah. I did like the Gidbin part, though. I like the idea that the only way these people are living is because one of us took time to do that stupid fucking side quest in Diablo 2, the one that I skip all the time because I'm over it at this point. That quest, every time you do it in Diablo 2, just remember, you saved those people's lives, guys. You did it. Yeah. You did it, team.
Yeah, like that was cool. That was like that one is like cool. That's a nice little, like touch to it and such. But yeah.
Also explains why Ormus didn't have a pet, by the way.
Yes, it does.
We called that when they announced the pets. So now I'm like, where's Ormus in the story? There he was. So.
Oh, there he's just sitting there.
Yeah, he's just chilling, being very old, inhabited by some sort of spirit. It's great.
Just
weird,
doing what he needs to. Good for Ormus.
Yeah.
I think there are some logical member berries. Like I enjoyed being able to go to the Durance of Hate, right?
And his chamber looked so good.
Yeah.
That was very cool.
But like, you can do that and you don't have to, there's a logical reason to go there, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Having to, like, oh, here's a broken flail. Like, okay, yeah, I know. I remember that too. It could have been anything else, right? Like you didn't have to. That's fine. It's fine. But yeah, I would agree. The Gidbin, that was cool. I liked that. There was at least some logic to it still existing and actually having a purpose. And yeah, I'd always do the Gidbin quest. I can't help it. I don't know why.
Also, because we're talking about Gidbin and all this stuff so much, they redid the Kuros Docks theme from Diablo 2 for Vessel of Hatred. Recommend. 10 out of 10. So good. Listen to them back to back. Ugh. It's simultaneously like a recreation and also like a sequel. It's amazing. It's so good. The music is really good. I don't know if anyone else knows
the music is absolutely amazing.
So like I forget the Ted something. I forget his name. I don't know. There's a couple people credited on it, but it is. I've got it. It's like 36 tracks, and it's insane. It's so good. My D&D campaign is getting so many more tracks for our next session. I'm very excited. Sorry.
Okay. So we can go into a little bit of speculation, unless anybody has any last complaints. Last complaints.
I mean, I think just to quantify the complaints, I think the story is still a great story. I could talk about my complaints with Diablo 2 as well. right? And
Yeah,
the ultimate complaint is, why the fuck did my warrior stick that stupid soulstone in his head at the end of Diablo 1? I didn't make that decision. There's a lot of stupid in the Diablo story, but it furthers the
Uh,
story.
well, I mean,
Yeah.
it was also because the cinematics were made off-site and they didn't know where
Right.
it was going.
But they don't do that
But yeah,
anymore. So that's not a
I
thing
I like to
anymore.
imagine they still do.
Yeah, well, they shouldn't. Being that they're not 5 people anymore. They're a multi-billion-dollar organization. Surely they've got their shit together a little more than that at this point. That said, again, I think Vessel was a great playthrough. I enjoyed
Maybe
it quite a bit.
maybe read that
Yeah,
book and we might.
yeah,
Maybe they don't.
right. Learn some
Um,
lessons. Yeah, who knows? Um,
That story has been told so many times. You don't need to read that book to know that.
that's true.
Yeah.
New York
I'm pretty
Times
sure we
best.
talked about that specific subject about like the disconnection between Blizzard North and Blizzard like on this show previously.
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
probably dozens of times. But
Um,
no, the campaign was good. My complaints are very minor, and I still enjoyed it. But as a fan of reading things and watching things and playing things, there were definitely some very obvious story tropes that could have been a little better if they had just gone a little different in the direction.
I think one of the other things is that like I would feel better about it if like kind of like obviously things could change. It's a new expansion, they could go through and redevelop things, but like the seasonal quests have all been inconsequential. That they don't play one into the other or have much of an impact.
Not one
Whatsoever.
reference of us being a vampire.
Not one
saying.
reference of us being a
Not
vampire. But it's like I think I would feel better like if it was like for like this was like World of Warcraft or Destiny or like some other game that has a continuous like living story, because it's like, oh, well, obviously at the beginning of the new expansion we're going to get introduced to the big bad guy, and he's going to get away because we're not going to fight him until the end of the expansion at the end of like the 2-year cycle or 1-year cycle or whatever it is.
5th raid that comes out.
Yeah, but there is at least like a precedent now that, well, okay, that's the story that I'm going to get from this expansion. I'm not going to have any other meaningful story until the next expansion a year from now. And again, like that could change. Obviously that they could make the seasons have more impactful stories. We had Harrison on here before that he had talked about in like the creative writing meetings that he had pushed for seasonal stories being inconsequential and by nature, so that way you never feel left out from like missing a story or anything like that, and that makes a lot of sense. But at the same time it like kind of sucks that like we're left on such a huge cliffhanger for yet another year, and it's just, I guess it's like, it really is just because we're left on the same cliffhanger, for yet another year.
Realistically, the story progressed 0%.
0%.
And by the end of the story, there was no reason for Nayrel to have left, because by the end of it, we're helping Nayrel do what she was fucking doing anyway, right? Like, it literally felt like everything that happened at the end was completely pointless and wasn't a come to fruition moment at the end of this expansion too. But you just mentioned something, Nine, that kind of made a light bulb go off my brain. I think that's the difference with this expansion. This is the first Diablo expansion for a live service Diablo.
Yeah.
And it played like a World of Warcraft expansion.
Yeah.
Like it played like it does, like at the end of War Within right now, the way it ends. It's almost like, okay, you don't get that final confrontation until, at some point much later in the expansion when they patch it in. So maybe we'll see that, which would be really great. I am all for seasonal content being a part of story.
It will greatly change, my rating of the story, if going forward we continue, this hunt for Mephisto season to season.
That'd be super cool. Yeah,
that it goes through and continues on like that. It would be great. It'd be nice. It's like I get part of why they do it, because there's a huge voice within the community. Almost every single streamer is like, oh, the story sucks, just hit spacebar, let me skip. It's not that important. No one wants to go through and like play through the story. The game, you can just click skip story, boom, you're right into seasonal content and all of that. And I get it. So why don't you just then make the story for the people that care about the story?
There's like 14 of us. So
yeah, make it continuous, make it matter, make it build off of one another, with the consequences and resolutions and stuff like that go from season to season. Because the people that don't care skip the story and might, they don't care. And the people that do, they will take the time out of starting a new season to go back and relearn that story, to play through those quests and things like that. It's like, just, I don't know, fuck them.
I'm with you. Yeah, but I also see the other side, because if they're going to spend development time and resources for the 14 of us that love the story,
they're spending development time and resources making a story for each of the seasons as it is now. That like everybody just kind of like hits spacebar real quick.
So chase Mephisto for the next month, 2 months, 3 months. Yeah,
make it matter a little bit more. And so that way it does have like consequences and such. So
yeah, I agree completely. Oh, actually, sorry. One other thing I hated that I must bring up that I just remembered. Why did they give me a choice to kill Urivar or not? Like, it didn't change anything in the actual story because I tried both options. It changed nothing at all, and there's no other choices in the whole campaign. That felt completely random and weird a little bit. I'm all for choice, but there was no choice ever in any Diablo game ever, or in this expansion, or in the game that it expanded. And yet, I get to choose whether this guy lives or dies, and really the outcome. It felt like Mass Effect 3, but on way less scale. So,
Answer? I don't know.
Tell us, Xanth. You know the answers.
Maybe they're trying something. They're just trying something.
Yeah. Maybe it's a social experiment to see how many people wanted to kill him, which should have been everybody.
Yeah,
I assume. I'm assuming everyone killed him.
I didn't even know you couldn't. I'm going to kill him. I'll try it on the next playthrough. One thing I will say about the campaign, I've played through it about 4 times now. I do love how streamlined it is and how well attached it is to leveling.
Mechanically,
it's great.
Yeah, I like that perspective. As much as it's kind of fun to jump into endgame immediately, there's something about playing through a campaign of like certain, like, okay, my character's at this point, it's at this point, it's at this point, that I haven't hated. The campaign is also very short, where I can kind of cruise through it and end at a decent level, like from the hardcore perspective. Like it feels good. I know there are significantly easier ways to level that do require other people, and I'm usually not playing with other people at the time. So like the campaign is still a great vehicle to kind of get through that 1 to 50, 1 to 60 grind significantly faster. So that's a bonus, but that's not really the story. That's just me just like, hey, this is just kind of nice. What I'm curious about, before we go into where we think the story is going to go from the concrete ending, or well, it's not really a concrete ending.
It is an ending. It is an ending. It's just not a satisfying one, right?
Right. From the end point that we did receive is where you thought the story was going to go before Vessel came out. At the end of Diablo 4, where did you think the logical ending point for an expansion was? What did you think was going to happen? I had some hopes when I was going in. It was, we kind of alluded to before with member berries, that perhaps we would see Tyrael, or at least get something in that vein.
One note,
right? That is still, like, for me, from the continuation from 3 to 4, the 2 unresolved things that I am looking for are Tyrael and the hero from Diablo 3. That's what I still want.
Or the party of heroes from Diablo 3, because we don't know what. Yep.
But that was like one of those ones, because Nephilim was singular and plural. So that way it was like one of those ones that's like the writing technique in Diablo 3 made it so that way it could be singular or plural.
Because the idea in Diablo 1 was that all 3 adventurers went in, right? It was the warrior that did the thing, but all 3 went in together and then became fucked up later. Same with Diablo 2. All of them are represented somewhere. We don't know about Diablo 3. It'd be great. You're right. It would be great. It'd be
It felt
great,
like it would
Blizzard.
be, with a little bit more time of like, hey, how did that story fully resolve? Because that's the thing about Diablo 3 is the story hasn't technically ended. That character became so powerful that they defeated both heaven and hell and then just continued existing. And now there's some shit happening in Sanctuary. Why aren't they fixing it? So what happened to them? And I was hoping we would maybe at least get that, or maybe it was Mephisto trying to corrupt that person instead of Space Jesus, like that, like
Jungle
that
Jesus.
Jungle Jesus. Sorry,
I have conspiracy theories about this.
and well, please do tell. I want to. I let's. These are
And nine
listeners.
will agree.
These are good conspiracy theories
Yes,
because they're grounded in nonsense
yes, exactly.
and nobody's harmed
Um,
by it.
exactly right. It's completely fictional. No, my headcanon is that our Nephilim characters from Diablo 3 Odysseaned. They basically just went like sacrificed themselves to preserve whatever was left of humanity, and everyone just forgot they existed. Because how the fuck does everything that happened in Diablo 3 happen, and nobody on this continent knows who our hero was? How is that possible in the realm of any sort of fictional reality or real reality?
Yeah.
It isn't. So in my mind, he had to have been removed from existence, and I refuse to believe that it's an accident. It's either intentional and he did it himself, or it's intentional by the writing team and they're assholes. I can't figure out which one it is. So I'm assuming it's the fictional one, so that there's a reason for it.
I if that happens like that, I don't think that's a bad solution to the hero of Diablo 3. It
Sure.
calls back. I kind of thought that that's where they were going to go initially with them to begin with, but
Mm.
the longer we go, and maybe there just aren't that many people out there clamoring for the answer of like, hey, what happened to that guy
There
from Diablo
probably isn't.
3?
There probably
No.
isn't.
But
Yeah.
we've found out so many times in all, like it is a trope of the Diablo franchise at this point that like the
Yep.
previous hero you find
All to corruption
dead
every time.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not every
And
time.
Well,
Not every time.
unless you're Natalia or the Zon, the Amazon. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, shoot. What is it?
Yep.
Cassandra?
Yep.
Yeah.
That. Yep.
Yeah.
Or I mean, technically, Zool was the D2 necromancer, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So there are exceptions.
We actually
But-
don't even know if Zool ever died.
Yeah, we don't. He could still be alive. We don't
He
know.
could still be alive,
Do the festering dark.
I will. It's one of those ones where it's like what you call it? The I think what it's the Diablo 2 Paladin is the only one that fell to corruption.
Technically, because the sorceress didn't. Yeah,
the sorceress didn't fall to corruption. She was trying to reverse the demonic curse that was causing the heat wave.
Didn't the druid fall to corruption up in Skosglen though? I thought the druid
I don't
did. I don't remember. I don't remember. I'll have to look it up.
I don't remember coming across someone that was canonically the Diablo 2 druid.
yeah, I don't think
you're
that
probably right.
has came out.
Yeah.
Regardless, it is something that I would have liked. So I was going in hoping to, if not get that resolved, at least get something around it. And it going back to like the critique before of it being a lateral story, with it being a lateral story, you don't have to go onto those hooks or do anything else because it's kind of in its own bubble. And then we maybe in the next one we will find that. Were there any things I guess like the other tandem that I'll put out, my hope on that was with the new uber unique mythic that we call him mythic now. We were told that there's a bonus to fighting angels. So I did go in with the speculation that we would be introduced to angels, or we would maybe find ourselves in more of a demon versus angel conflict, and that none of that transpired. I'm curious why we have a mythic unique with a bonus to fighting angels that don't exist.
Flavor.
Well, but flavor's text that goes at the bottom.
The only item in the game that has a flavor like that, right?
Yeah.
Like it seems weird.
It is one of those ones. My initial speculation was that that through the part of the campaign is that it would eventually end with us fighting Mephisto, and that one of the sub bosses would actually be like a corrupted Inarius that Mephisto has resurrected. You know, since he got killed in hell, we've seen things with Iswal and such that angels can be corrupted and turned into demons. And obviously, if there's anyone that's a great candidate for that, it's our Daddy Inarius. And so I thought that might be like a little like head nod to that. But past that, it's honestly just a flavor thing that doesn't have any actual contextual purpose in the game. I'm trying to think of a couple of examples. World of Warcraft has done things like that before. Where they'll give like some sort of like bonus to something that doesn't exist, or that doesn't actually like matter, and so I think it really is just like it's kind of like a nod in the item, but it gives you the bonus to demons, so it has some purpose. But the angels, at least right now, is useless. And the same thing for like the Crown of Lucian. I think it's just a name for an item, and doesn't the as when we had the interview with Harrison, he was going through and talking about it's like. I got to name like all of these rings because no one else wanted to do it, and so it's just like one of the writers just got to like name the item. It's like, hey, Lucian, he's cool. Just name it after him. It doesn't actually have any like foreshadowing of things that are gonna go through and take place in the game or anything along those lines. So the items were definitely not really shaping big expectations for me of things that were going to appear in the game. And one of the things Nerdwords touched on previously about like demons are immortal and will come back and such, that they've kind of been going away from a little bit. It's not been like hard like retcon, but in the previous Diablo games, it was just like if you're a demon, you're gonna be resurrected. Period. But now they're kind of like pulling that back like a little, as if it's like not like every demon gets resurrected. Maybe it's just like the big named ones or the big powerful ones that can be resurrected. It's because like we've killed Lilith, but like yeah, who cares? She'll be back in a little bit, type thing. But it's more like. Lilith is kind of like dead, and Lucian specifically was like erased from existence. He wasn't just killed; like he was straight up removed. And that was supposed to be at the time like a really big deal, like because the demons would always just come back, but Lucian was gone forever. So I think that would be a massive retcon if they ever actually bring him back or return him, because he is supposed to be dead, like dead. But beyond that, I did also appreciate, Mephisto going through and trying to tempt you with like, hey, my brothers are coming back too, and they're not going to be anywhere as nice as I will,
Yeah, that was good. That was really good.
Yeah,
Master manipulator that Mephisto is.
And of course, it's foreshadowing of foreshadowing.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's when I went into the expansion, my expectation was that we would fight and likely destroy or severely cripple Mephisto, and we would get a lead into either Diablo or Baal or both. I really thought that's where it was going, because that is the story of Diablo, right? You kill one big bad for another one to show its face. Diablo 4 was the first time it wasn't a primeval, where it was Lilith instead, and I thought that was very cool and a natural transition to now Mephisto's the next big thing. But now Mephisto's still the next big thing, I think, is kind of the letdown that a lot of us had.
Yeah.
Again, I'm excited for what I think is going to come, but yeah.
Yeah. I would actually almost appreciate it, like, if in, like, the way that they end up doing things is that, like, we kill Baal before we kill Mephisto. You know,
Mm.
like that they just keep stringing Mephisto out like a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Because the way that's set up, Mephisto is still going to be the first primeval to die. Like I obviously my headcanon is that they're obviously going to save Diablo for the end. You know, we're gonna fight Mephisto, then we're gonna fight Bale, and then we're gonna fight Diablo. Fucking 8 years from now, because like it takes like
Right
two
before
plus
Diablo
years.
5 comes out.
Yeah, we're just gonna take 2+ years in order to fight each primeval, because you have to like free them and then get them their vessel and then fight them in the next one or something.
You see,
You know,
Diablo's a franchisee now, right? He doesn't have to
yeah,
show up at every location. He could just sell his brand, right, and make sure that we're. Yeah, I do find it weird that we're on the expansion for Diablo 4 and no Diablo.
I'm
I don't hate
okay
it,
with
but
it.
I am too. I don't understand. I don't hate
Yeah.
it. It is weird as a longtime Diablo fan.
Yeah.
But I don't hate it, and I do appreciate, despite some of the things we didn't like about the story, that Mephisto is not dead yet.
Yeah.
That there will be a bigger confrontation, and hopefully they'll take the notes from the community and how everyone felt about this story and go, okay, cool, now we know how to execute on really delivering this when we get to that next step, whatever it is, through seasons or through an expansion. But I am excited for what is possibly to come, even though I didn't like necessarily the vessel with which we got there in every regard. Pun intended. You're welcome.
10 points for Gryffindor on
Pew, pew,
that
pew,
one.
pew, pew,
Yeah.
pew.
Yeah.
I think obviously there's a logical transition there about speculation. I think while I don't care for how it ended, the thought of Mephisto taking over Jesus's body to then go
Oh,
and
Jesus.
spread more lies has a lot of potential.
Oh, does
I
it?
it, I think it does.
Almost
Does it?
like it's a similar play call.
A little bit of a callback, right? Which isn't
Huge
awful.
one.
Um,
No, it's amazing. I'm really excited about it. So,
and then I think maybe there's a logical what people have been clamoring for is a paladin. I think a connection in a next expansion to a holy based class as a reaction to what they have worshipped forever becoming evil would be a good reaction. Um, that's my speculation going forward, but what are you guys thinking?
Oh, it's
9
gonna be the
maybe.
Crusader.
At least Crusader exists in this game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like one of those ones where it's like, because if people that are specifically wanting the Paladin, the Paladins were specific to Westmarch.
Yeah.
And that's half a world away and
Right.
such. We have the Crusaders. They're there. They fulfill the same niche, and this specifically is the whole reason that the Crusaders exist.
Yep.
Especially like to go through and try and cleanse Akarat's body of the corruption of Mephisto, in order to bring like closure. That this is almost like the totality of the Crusader experience and the reason for the entire reason for their existence. So it feels definitely a more like this is like Crusader story notes than a Paladin.
I could see that. Where do you think the story is going to go?
To hell?
That's the next logical step. I really, what's got me excited and kind of a little more forgiving on some of the story things is I feel like they have just set up the second Sin War in the coolest way, because the first Sin War was the Church of the Triune and the Cathedral of Light, and them warring for the souls essentially of Sanctuary. The idea of Mephisto running the faith of Akarat through the body of Akarat, and Prava and the Cathedral of Light still being there. And I have this headcanon theory that there might be some Lilith in Prava. She did die right by her, and the last time we saw Prava was when she was in hell, and then when she came out she was a different person. right? She was acting different. She's trying to be our friend now. Like, I feel like there's a plot twist in there somewhere, and knowing how the team likes to write, it wouldn't shock me at all. That said, I think it would be cool if Lilith was, if some piece or whatever of Lilith or some other demon entity was in Prava, and then Mephisto's doing his thing too. The idea of these two churches kind of like fighting for the souls of Sanctuary while we're trying to navigate it. Even the idea of like picking a side, if possible, would be really interesting. As far as classes, I think that they wouldn't do Paladin or Crusader. I would like to see them do like a Paladin who's like completely shattered by the existence of Akarat, the very existence of Akarat being like taken by Mephisto, and almost like a Death Knight vibe instead. Like a Paladin or Crusader who's gone full like demonic energies, but for good, right? Like fighting for the right reasons, but using the powers, through that
So like
source. I don't know.
an Oathbreaker, really?
Kinda, yeah. I mean, essentially, yes, yeah.
And they kind of did that with the Blood Knight and Immortal.
Right, and that's why I'm saying like
Yeah.
they've kind of like that vibe has existed. They've tested the waters with it, and it seemed pretty cool in Immortal. I could see them doing that, and it would be. I mean, if you added like a Death Knight type class, an Oathbreaker Paladin type class, that might be the first time Nineball actually thinks about which character he's going to play.
Can they summon the undead?
Yes,
no.
They would have to be able to summon at least an undead or two. They wouldn't be full on necromancer status, but they should have a little undead buddy. I mean, very similar to Death Knights in WoW and things like that too. But I think we're heading towards the second Sin War, and if I was to pick a class, I actually don't think it'd be that. I think it would. Well, that's tough. Yeah, I would still go with an Oathbreaker or some kind.
Well, guess what? It's a witch doctor.
Damn.
Sorry,
Roasted.
my friends at Blizzard told me.
Witch doctors are cool too.
It's witch doctor again.
That's fair.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
We just have to go. We just have to go a little bit further south, right?
I think I want to go to Skobos, or I want to go to however you say. Because I always say it wrong, but I know the wizard homeland Zin.
Zenjai?
That one. Yep. It looks like two words spelled differently, but sound the same. I don't even mess with it. I would love to go to either of those areas, and that's where Akarat's from anyway. So there's like purpose to go there, because wouldn't Akarat, resurrected Jesus style, go to his home? That would be interesting to see if he goes back there, and we have to follow him, and so I can see that happening too. Plus, more mage lore is always good for someone who plays a mage all the time. I'm excited about it. We can find out more about Syndra and the shit she got into when she was over there. So,
now that you mention it, that does make a lot of sense. It could be because Zenzai does get mentioned a couple of times.
A couple times. Yep, sure does. Yeah.
So I mean, even what was it? The little mini holiday event that we had this year, the Festival of the Ancients or whatever that was, or the Ancestors, not the Ancients, the Ancestors.
Yeah, Ancestors. Yeah.
I was putting that right in front of your face. That could be an interesting.
Well, there was some stuff in the Season of the Construct as well too. Season of the Construct had some stuff that was in there about it, and and it's another continent, right? So they could add it to the northern part of the map without going west. If they're trying to save the Tristram area and the West March area for kind of a much later type deal, then it would give them another option. Though I think Skobos would be super interesting as well. We just got a spear wielding kind of agility class, so I think
Skobos was like the most requested place to go in Diablo 3.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's the place that we know the least about at this point. Considering we know Cassia and enough about the Amazons from Diablo 2, that I think it's the one, like, we got the Badlands got fleshed out a lot more with the Demon Hunters and all that stuff that happened. Obviously the wizard lore in the X place that you keep saying that I can't say. There's a lot of cool lore there. Skobos, we don't have much except for in the books, so it'd be really cool to go there for sure. But Sin War 2.0. Sin War 2.0.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be called that though.
Yeah, and here I still just want to go into Ura. Yeah, but the entrance is still just sitting there in the
You're not allowed.
middle of
You're not allowed.
Hawazar. Yeah.
Yep.
Someday.
Hole in the middle of the map.
Yeah. It's a weird relationship with Diablo's story, right? I I really do enjoy it. But I also am able, and I think we all are, to look past it because we also enjoy the other part, which is the gameplay.
Yeah.
This is a weird expansion where like I was let down by the story, but I'm still very much loving everything else. It's just like if they would just ended just a little bit better, everything would
Yeah.
taste just a little bit sweeter.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Like that, we are not going to replay the campaign continuously for the next year. We are going to play the core game continuously.
Some of us will play it a couple more times though.
Well,
So
I
Yeah, because that obviously this is all about the story, and I have some problems with how like this is handled with the launching of a season and the campaign at the same time, kind of like the
yes.
pressures and
right.
like the decision paralysis that you're having to go through and do. And I'm just like hitting a story point, and it's like Realm Walker spawning, huh? Like, it's just it's that experience hasn't been all that great, especially because I've been extremely limited on time at the beginning of this season, and so having to like jumble between those things. But I forget what I was going with this point. I just had a massive
Well,
brain fart.
just them launching a season at the same time they launch the
Yeah,
expansion and the analysis paralysis that comes with that.
yeah,
I,
and it's just like I would like to see like a little bit more of that like revised, or I don't know what they wanted to do with that, but I eventually will at some point go back. Now I remember what I was gonna say. I will at some point go back and replay from the beginning of the game, playing through the original campaign and directly into the expansion campaign,
Yeah, same.
just to see that experience. It like it's a little bit too much to try to do it at the beginning of an expansion, even though I would love to do that, like start off going through and playing, but like you can't do it before because it's going to be the seasonal content, and so you'll miss out playing the campaign on the eternal character. And if you try to do it like next expansion, you're going to be playing the original campaign, Vessel of Hatred,
Vessel.
and then the next expansion. So you're already like a couple of days into the season, and you're just like finishing the campaign or starting the new campaign in order to like have that same experience. And it's just kind of like weird, because you then have all the seasonal stuff that's going on and running around, and it's just like like I get it. Again, I get it. There's 14 of us that like the story and
Yeah.
things like that, and so we will take the back seat to the press space bar, skip cutscene. Don't care.
well, what I will say is I I think there are more people who care about the story than what we might expect because after a couple of days, uh, I did see a lot more vocal critics of it. Um,
Yeah.
and I
Yes.
know, like, obviously, you can create content around anything, and you can like crap on things. But I did see a lot of content that was similar to kind of what we are talking about and pointing out some of the issues with the story, right? Not from a place of like just to farm hate, but to say like I genuinely like this story and I was disappointed that it didn't live up to its expectations. So maybe there are more people making those complaints and then that in turn leads to a shift in what the next expansion is and how they deliver that story where it has a more resolute ending, where you again don't wander around Kuras thinking, "Did I just finish that? Is that it? Is it done
Yeah,
now?
Are we really done?
Is
Yeah.
this guy still wants to talk to me, right? Everybody else saw that. He's gone. We know we have to go do something, right? Okay, all right. I guess we're cool with it. I'll see you all later. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Um, there are more people out there, and I think hopefully that uh, everybody seeming to agree that the story could have been a little bit better, maybe leads to a more exciting, and for the first time ever, a second expansion, which has not been confirmed. Nobody has said it officially.
yeah.
Yeah. If I have
I'm
to wait 10 years for more story, I will fucking flip a table. Like, you can't end that expansion the way it did and not give me more. If you do, I swear to God, Blizzard. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna bitch about it a lot.
I mean, Rod did mention, when they let the cat out of the bag the first time, they said annual expansions, plural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But until we hear officially, always assume there won't be a second Diablo expansion because it's never happened.
Diablo 4, Bastion of Hatred is the next expansion. We have to go into the depths of hell and fight him at his citadel.
And then it turns out he was actually in a different citadel that we will go and find in another expansion.
Toadstool shows up. The princess is not in this tower.
Castle.
Yeah.
They have the potential to do like the funniest thing ever if we do end up going to a Zanzai, and it's like, they have it like, Vessel of Hatred and like Lord in the North or something like that, because I believe the canceled Diablo 3 expansion was supposed to be King in the North.
Okay.
And so just having some sort of reference to that, because we are going north,
It's true.
if we do end up going to the island.
Well, we don't know what the future holds, but it has been nice chatting with you guys about the story. I've been waiting a few weeks for this conversation, and I'm happy to see that we're in the similar boat. Again, it's not awful. It is not an awful story, but it's definitely not less, especially coming off of the main campaign. Obviously, let us know what your thoughts are around the story, how well you received it, what your ranking might be on that 10-point scale. It probably is lower than mine. That's okay. Give us your highlights, give us your lowlights, and obviously, come on back next time when we won't spoil the entire story of the game. We'll talk about all the fancy new stuff and new toys that we get to play with. But in the meantime, let's close it out as we always do with a moo, moo, moo.
Moo, 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 moo.
Moo, moo.